Good morning. Today I wanted to give y'all another Cymbre quirks. Let y'all know a little bit more about me because it's been a little bit since I've done the last video about some of the oddities that comprise me. So I've been noticing that several channels have been posting videos about beekeeping, and I kind of wanted to jump in on that. Even though we don't currently have beehives. Now we do hope to have beehives in the near future. In fact, I brought some of my equipment from my parents' house to our house recently, and we're looking forward to that, but we knew that this year really wasn't quite the year. If we had purchased bees this year, it just would have been too much all at once, and the hives probably wouldn't have done well. And honestly, we need time to clean up the equipment that in essence got devastated by wax moths while it was in storage, because I did not properly prepare my equipment prior to storing those hives after my bees absconded. So let's get to the point. What is it I'm talking about today? I self-inject venom on myself because I have a slight allergy to bees. Now, I haven't done this in several years. In fact, this makes me feel old. It's been over a decade since I've actually had bees. I had 2 hives when I was about 20. Well, I guess I was 21 when I got them, because I got them the summer before Justin and I met. And then I had both hives for at least a year, and then one absconded, and then the other one I had about 2 years, but I wasn't actively going out there and being a proper beekeeper and checking them weekly. So all that said, I'm really hoping to do better this time. But what I found out was when I first started having the hives, I'd actually been stung once before by a native hive that had set up shop in my parents' farmhouse, not the house we lived in, kind of like a storage building on the property. And then I just had kind of like a localized reaction, right? And then I say that. I had to pause because I had to think about that. That one may have been the one. I got a sting on my face, and that particular one was here. And so I don't remember if I had a second sting that was more on this side. But there was another sting that I got that I actually went the next day and had a job interview. Got the job, but probably only because I had a friend who was already working there, and so the guy knew from her that I wasn't like crazy. Because I got there and I ended up getting woozy while I was standing there talking to him, and so he and my mom had me sit in a chair and got water, yada. So fast forward a little bit, and then I'll kind of come back to that. When I had my hives, at first the bees were not very protective of their hives because they didn't yet have the hive well enough established. They didn't have much honey to speak of, so they weren't super aggressive or protective of their hive. So I was going out there wearing shorts and a shirt, right? Wearing gloves because, I don't want to get stung if I don't have to. But they were fairly docile and tame. Well, that changed really quickly. No, they weren't Africanized. They just got to the point where they were now ready to protect their hive. So one day when I went out there were more bees coming up than normal, and I was not garbed up in the full bee suit. So I actually had a bee that went up my shorts and stung me on the back of my thigh. And I squeezed it because it hurt. And then I put the hive back together and, went home. Well, at the time, my parents were actually on a mission trip, so they were out of country. And I didn't do anything about it because, I try not to do meds unless I have to. But after a couple of days, the swelling was as big as my hand. And then the hot red part was as big as my palm on the back of my thigh. And my brother told me, you have to call mom and dad. So I did, and they told me, duh, Have you been taking your vitamin C? And have you taken Benadryl to take care of the swelling? And I was like, no, I didn't think about the Benadryl. So I took that and the swelling abated fairly quickly. Now let me say that that's not the last time I've been stung, and I have never had anaphylactic shock or anything where my throat starts closing up. I just have gotten, well, at the time I was getting progressively more swelling. And so my dad said, you know, if you want to continue keeping bees, you need to start building a resistance. And so thus the self-injection. What I've found is that whenever I get the venom, like, okay, so let's do a little bit of bee biology 101 here. Honeybees have a barb at the end of their stinger. So when they sting you, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, when the bee stings, they're giving up their life, because when they pull away, the venom sac on the end of their abdomen actually rips off, and that, because that barb is hooked in you, lodged in you, and the venom sac stays with the stinger while the bee goes off and dies. And if you leave that stinger, that venom sac, it kind of reminds me of those air pumpers that you use for like a fireplace. And that venom sac will continue to contract. There will be muscle contractions. And it continues to pump that venom in you until you get that stinger removed or until the venom sac is completely empty. Well, what I found was if I allowed the entire venom sac to go in, I would have some major swelling, and the next day I'd be woozy and, you know, get lightheaded and kind of light-breathed if I exerted myself too much, which wouldn't take much the day after being stung. But if I got the venom sac out quickly and it was only part of the venom sac that went in, it was mostly just localized swelling and itching. So, all that to say, I was attempting to build up my tolerance using the venom sac, and by self-injecting, I was able to control how much I put in. So if I wanted to go ahead and do a full dose, I would squeeze it all in, and then I would just know, you know, I'd be mentally prepared, okay, this is the kind of symptoms and side effects I'm going to have as a result of that. Now, how did I self-inject? Well, when I had the hive, the stingers from some of the bees would be on my gloves. And so I would just save one of those, and then I'd essentially poke out the stinger and then find a pore on my wrist and slide it in and then squeeze. Now, there was a little bit of stinging putting the stinger in, but really it's when you start squeezing the venom that you find out whether or not you really got it under your skin. But since I don't have a hive, I actually froze one of the honeybees that was in that cluster that killed our rabbit, I guess, last year. And I'll try to later link a video, because I'm going to be uploading this directly. But I'll try to link a video to that, because that was a really weird occurrence that happened, because they attacked her twice for no reason that we could tell. So I froze this so that at a future date I could self-inject some venom, especially when we were planning on starting to get the hives up and going again. So I know that's really weird to do. Like, who would sting themselves with venom, especially if I don't have arthritis, right? But it was a method for me to continue to be able to have this hobby that I wanted to have, while being able to, in a more controlled way, try to, what am I trying to say, offset, I guess, my symptoms, because again, I could control how much venom I allowed to go in, therefore I could control what type of symptoms I would have as a reaction to that. And the hope was that over time, just like with allergy shots that you get at the doctor, over time you build a resistance. Now, what I will say is you have to be very careful, because if your body does not fully react to an allergen until you've been exposed to it 3 times, or at least that's what they teach us in immunology class. So if you get stung twice and if you're, oh, I'm good, and then you go and you self-inject a full venom sac, you may have an extreme reaction that you haven't had before. So if you happen to do the crazy things I do, be very careful and always start off with the lesser amount, and then once you've done it more than 3 times, then you can slowly start to increase it. So just that caution. I don't want anybody to be like, oh, well, she does it, so I'm going to, and then you end up in the hospital because you had too much of a reaction. You have to do it slowly. That's the way they do it with the allergy shots. You slowly build immunities and resistance to that. Or if you watch The Princess Bride, he spent 3 years developing an immunity to iocane powder. And he did it slowly over 3 years, not all at once in 3 weeks. Anyway, all right. Hope y'all have a blessed day. I know that was a kind of another crazy weirdism, but that's why I wanted to share, because I'm all about the crazy. Y'all have a blessed day, and I'll see you next time. God bless.